You are running with the Devils, and Big John, one of the worst losses in program history this past Saturday night in Tempe. We got a lot to talk about on this show. Of course, we'll talk about this humiliating defeat at the hands of the Eastern Michigan Eagles. Of course, Herm Edwards' departure from the program, and Shaun Aguano, the new interim head coach. And we still got a game this weekend. Got to preview ASU's game against the Utah Utes, also in Tempe. But I'm the RyKno, Ryan Knowles. Here with me, as always, Big John Caldwell. And Big John, we like to say here on RWD, you give us 30 minutes, we give you the world of ASU football. But we're going to need more than 30 minutes today because we have got so much to talk about, starting with this just, I don't know where to start with this one. ASU shocked. That's the only way to put it. By Eastern Michigan, 30-21. Where do the Devils go from here?
Well, I think our opening slide said worst win of all time. We're gonna maybe talk about some of the worst defeat of all time. That is, excuse me, worst drubbing. This was it appeared like nothing we could do would get our kids playing with any intensity. The intensity was just not there. We got out schemed. We couldn't stop the run. Pure and simple, could not. There's nothing we could do to stop the run. Once Omar Norman Lott went down, and I think it was the first play or second play he went down, and he was replaced by one of the Moores, Joe. It was lights out. They kept swinging one of their tackles from the other side, coming over and double teaming on them. And they just pounded, and were able to run, phenomenal.
ASU had really had no answer for Samson Evans, the Eastern Michigan running back. 36 carries, 253 yards, and a touchdown. We talked about it last week. It's easy to pick up third down when you're doing things right on first and second down. That's exactly what Eastern Michigan was doing.
Yeah.
They put themselves in a lot of third and manageable situations, and that's why they finished 11 for 15 on third down, only punted once. That was the only time ASU was able to get them off the field, except for K'Wan Markham's interception in the first half. And then, they rushed for a total of 305 yards as a team. That's just not good enough if you're ASU. There's a reason that Herm Edwards lost his job as a result of this game.
They were running pace, and they obviously picked that up from the OSU
right.
game.
Yeah, that was something that we didn't really talk about. They added, and they added some wrinkles into their offense, running pace. They put in the backup quarterback, Austin Smith, who had not played a down, or didn't have a recorded statistic through the first two games, and he, definitely added a different wrinkle as a dual threat quarterback. Mm-hmm. And they hit ASU with some shock plays that just ASU really didn't have an answer for defensively.
We had to stay in nickel the whole night because we had to respect the fact that he was in spread, even spread, and he may have been throwing. And so it was just frustration after frustration, and nothing seemed.
And we talked about that, and I still say you got to put a safety in the box in that case because how successful they've been running. They're getting 6-7 yards a pop at least, and you got to put a safety in the box or something. You got to, anticipate that and adjust. And I just don't know if it was, I don't know. I have never seen a team, a coach lose his team as fast as this team was lost. Right. And as fast as Herm lost his team this week, it's really weird how things went downhill so fast. I mean, they were in the OSU game. It was a 3-point game in the fourth quarter. It's not like they were getting blown out or humiliated in their last game. They won their first game pretty convincingly. So it's not like this was something that was building over time. It just seemed like they didn't have the team wasn't ready to play. Eastern Michigan comes out, they get some confidence early on. They take a 10-0 lead, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
So part of why Herm is gone.
And we'll get into more detail on that.
But in this game, we kind of we approach OSU like a pro game. In other words, we were trying to keep the score down. We were trying to manage it like a pro game, and hang around for the fourth quarter. And they had better horses in the fourth quarter, right? They beat us up front. In this, that's gone now in terms of, I mean, now we have the opportunity to go out and start putting hammers down on people and not manage these games like pro games.
We're the superior team. We got to be playing like it.
That's right. And that's one of the things, we're going to talk about legacy and what he did and good and all that. But I think that's one of the cool things about all this for people is that we won't be trying to play that pro style, hang around to the fourth quarter style of football like you see in the pros.
Just play your game for the four quarters. I think you gotta roll with punches a little more than that. You know, if it's a
few more strikes.
If it's a shootout game, go out there and try to score every possession. If it's a defensive game, hey, play some ball control. You know, I don't think that's, you know, you shouldn't have to try to dictate, you know, the same way every single game.
Yeah. I'll give you a really good example. In the OSU game, second quarter, about 12 minutes, we were on 4th and 1, our own 44. 4th and 1, we punted. Now, psychologically, that tells to a team who felt like they were playing pretty good, and says, you're not good enough to get a yard. And I understand that's pro style, but that's not college football. College football says
that's old school.
That's correct.
Pro style, because pro teams today go for that.
I know, and that's kind of the era Herm came from. So there's just a good example. Now, was that a hangover to this game? I don't think. I think that's in the back of the kids' heads.
It's never just one thing. And that may have had something that may have played a part in it.
Right.
But you know, it's never just one thing. I think, you know, we've heard some things coming out now about how Herm was going to retire at the end of the season regardless. You know, and all this other stuff that was coming out.
There was a master plan, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it was just, you know, this pro model just, I don't think, worked to the level that they had hoped for. Just, you know, just a lot of things really going wrong with this NCAA investigation, with, you know, the transfers, just a lot of stuff just not going ASU's way. I think this, you know, it finally, I think, kind of bled over onto the field. And, you know, this game is kind of the straw that broke the camel's back as far as athletic director Ray Anderson and school president Michael Crow having run out of favor with Herm Edwards, run out of patience with Herm Edwards as leading the program. And, you know, just putting a bow on this Eastern Michigan, you know, it's hard enough to talk about. I mean, we've had kind of the week to decompress from this game. And, you know, they missed on some of those deep shots that really should have been scores. You know, it was obvious they were dominated in the line of scrimmage, even though they got off the schneid as far as, you know, the goose egg for sacks. They were able to get 2 sacks in the game, but they were still dominated on both sides of the ball for the most part. They really couldn't get the running game going until the second half against a team that, you know, had been really weak against the run going in, and then those penalties just continue to pile up and kill drives and be a big problem. You know, especially, you know, when they're so poorly timed when they happen. Right. You know, 9 penalties for 84 yards in this game. Just a lot of stuff going, you know, that continue to go wrong. And
in the press conference, Ray actually said, you know, mistakes and fouls so that were happening at an unacceptable level.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, as a guy who goes to a lot of practice, one of the things that when there's a penalty or a procedure, offsides, you know, holding, whatever, they don't run the play again. Herm never ran the play again, right? They never ran it back and try to get it right. Right now, under Coach Aguano, they're run it again. They run it again until they get it right. He does not believe in that.
Teams are supposed to do. You're supposed to run it till you get it right.
Right.
And it just, you know, a lot of the stuff you hear coming out about Herm and some of his methods, and, you know, not working the guys hard enough in practice, and that kind of bled over into the games as well. You know, I understand you want to keep them preserved and keep them fresh for the games, but at the same time, they get rusty. That can affect performance too. And, you know, that the practices have been much harder so far through this week. That, you know, it's what we've heard.
Yeah. So those kids are getting tired, and a lot of them are glad they are too. I mean, there's players are saying, we haven't been run this hard in a long time, and we need it.
And if that includes preseason conditioning, that's a real problem.
Yeah.
But as we do after every defeat here on RWD, we don't like to do it, but of course we have to. What we learned, presented by Flagstar Bank, for all your mortgage needs, check out xllendingteam.com. It was obvious this team was unprepared. It just seemed like, once halftime hit, the team was down 24-14. Herm, I felt like he lost the locker room, in the first half of a game, and as long as he's been there, it just boggles my mind how fast this happened. And I know that it was building up over time, but you really didn't see it affecting the team's performance on the field. They were still winning games they were supposed to win, and they didn't always win the games they weren't favored in. But this is the first time they've really lost a game they weren't supposed to lose in a long time, at least under with this athletic director within his tenure. And and we wanted to see the identity of this team emerge in the third game, and I still question whether we've seen it or not. Hopefully, with the new coach, it will come a new identity, and this team will get on track on both sides of the ball. And then, and part of that identity is when you're not running the ball. I think the offense has struggled. When they had to try to get back in the game, they weren't the most successful. Especially when they got further into Eastern Michigan territory, their drive stalled. Felt like once they got past midfield a few times, and again, that can't happen either. So
third down execution.
That's what I learned watching from this just ugly game.
Yeah, I'm always looking at trend. What's the trend that's been developing that nothing's changing, or what's the positive or negative? Picking up, we weren't ready to play. I think you can make the argument that sort of the way we got sort of beat up, manhandled in the fourth quarter, OSU kind of could there's a little bit of a carryover effect.
And say what you want about Todd Graham, week to week, his teams usually didn't have that hangover. They lost a game, even if they were just humiliated in a game, they usually got over it and were able to not let it affect their performance the next week.
Compartmentalize.
It's like Herm, for whatever reason, this team under Herm Edwards just didn't seem to have a short memory when it came to bad games. Every team has them. Every team has bad games. It's unavoidable, but you still got to put it past you and move on and try to not make the same mistakes the next week. And it seemed like that wasn't the case under Herm Edwards. That was a big problem in his tenure.
Yeah, and it was obvious that when losing Norman Omar Lott, that Omar Norman Lott, I always have trouble with two first names or two last names. The lack of depth really, from week to week now, it's becoming evident that lack of depth on the line is really hurting it. I thought it was going to be offense. It really is defense too.
Yeah, and which is another head scratcher, because the D line was supposed to be the strength of the defense, one of the strengths of the team, and you would think that they would be able to stop the run, but the last 2 weeks they've really struggled to do that. And now you got Utah, who's another hard-nosed, run first type team that's looking to blow you off the ball. And
basic gap management.
I'm hoping this D line kind of gets it together and is able to get a little more stout against the run.
Yeah, you talk about this all the time and over the years on this show, and that's basic gap management responsibility, right?
Yes.
It's
not there right now.
No, it's not.
I know.
It's not. It's very frustrating. So those are my key points.
And then the fact that we talked about the penalties continuing and the lack of discipline on this team again. Hopefully that will change as Herm Edwards relinquished his coaching duties on Sunday. Relinquished his coaching duties on Sunday. It was kind of a mutual parting of the ways between the administration and Herm. I'm a little bit surprised that Shaun Aguano was named interim coach, because you got, granted, he's been a head coach before at the high school level, but you got, guys with a little bit more experience in the coaching staff. You got Sean Slocum as the associate head coach, the special team coach. You got Donnie Henderson, who's been an assistant at just about every level of football there is
Right.
for 30 years, it feels like. I think that's about how long he's been in the game.
Oh, more than that, almost.
Yeah, probably. Are you surprised that it was Aguano who's named interim coach?
No, I'm not. I've known Shaun for the better part of, well, since really he started his championship run down at Chandler. I was in his office constantly. One of my good friends who passed away, Chris Chick, was at Saguaro. He's my nephew.
I know Chris as well. Yeah.
God bless his soul. He was one of my nephew Kyle's best friends, and he went from Saguaro to Chandler. So I was always hanging around down there, and I would go to Saguaro practice and Saguaro games and Chandler practice and Chandler games on the same day. And Shaun made it a point to show me. It was very transparent. Let me come see the whole operation inside in his office. Go to the chalk talks, the whiteboarding, everything. Was very, very gracious with his time with me and explained a lot of things they were doing. I even went up and traveled with them to their game when they went up and played Valor Christian up in Colorado, and was in the booth with those guys. But I'm not surprised. He has a natural leader tendency. He's a friend of everybody's. He's very trusted. Well, he had 6 guys to manage. He's used to managing something bigger than that, 300, where he came from.
And managing, I think that, especially in today's level of football, managing a high school program isn't like what it was 20 years ago.
No,
it's a lot more like managing a college program now.
Yes, at 6A, it's a big deal. There's a lot of moving parts. The one thing I was going to tell you though is that for him to get the job sort of says we place a value on this, on finding something that the kids need, what was lacking: discipline, accountability, and loving on each other. There's the old story that one ox can carry 4,000 pounds, 2 of them can carry up to 50,000 pounds when they're raised together from babies. And that's because, so it's not just additive, it's a quantitative jump that can be made if they love on each other.
And he certainly won the press conference. I don't think there's any debate about that. He said a lot of the same things. Said a lot of the right things. Just seemed to inspire confidence in his guys. There's certainly been some good things coming out of practice, but as the Herm train is derailed, he talked about Ohana, the Ohana era beginning here for however long it lasts. At least it's looks like it's heading in a positive direction, all things considered. Mm-hmm. So, and we'll get into Aguano here in a minute, but just to wrap up the Herm Edwards era, what are we going to remember from Herm Edwards' tenure here in Tempe, John?
I thought he built a great. He was still one of the most trusted people in all of football at every level. He wasn't just because he was a personality on television. He was a very respected guy that played at every level, played at a high level, and he could recruit when he was given that responsibility. Let him recruit. I mean, the fact that 11 kids signed pro contracts last year is proof. I think to his credit, while he brought the pro model, sort of put him in that CEO position, and he had a lot of lieutenants that were running the show. I think he trusted those people far too much, gave him too much responsibility, and I think that
he is a trusting person, and didn't really go the right way ultimately.
I mean, there are probably some staff members that will should be considered to stay around in the next round here after the season's over. But no, he positive. There was he managed to get through I don't know who else could have got us through a very, very difficult COVID period where we went 2-2. I thought a huge strain on just not only the people, but the program to get through all that and figure out a way to. You didn't know 1 week from the next if you're going to play or not, and the fact that he was able to get them to play is a testament to his leadership, and it wasn't just It wasn't just him. There's a lot of other guys, but I will always respect him for that, getting through an unprecedented, period in college football where nobody knew which end was up and who was going to play the next day. So that's what I'm going to remember, take away from this, is that he managed to get us through this impossible time. Now, we'll never know. We're not going to know for a long time what his involvement was in this, if there's what the letter of allegation is for recruiting. But I can tell you this: today something came down. I don't know if you heard about what happened at LSU. One of the assistant coaches.
I did hear something about that.
Yeah, so one of their assistant coaches was accused of meeting with a recruit and giving him some swag, basically, during COVID. Well, they self-sanctioned and said, "We plead guilty. Here's the fine. Here's the fine we will pay. Here's the lessened amount of time in the field with recruits." And the NC2A said, "We accept." That is eventually, that should be good precedent for telling everybody what's going to happen here. It's not going to be anything, horrible. It might be a loss of a scholarship, might be a loss of recruiting visits or on campus, but that's going to be about the extent of it. Why it's taking this long is because I think there were so many bodies involved. Instead of one kid getting swag, there was multiple kids, and they're interviewing those kids. Now, I think what's happening as they interview these kids, they're finding out, oh, I went to this school, I went to that school. Then there was the investigations widening out.
There's a trickle down effect, yeah.
Well, it's not a cut and dry thing, because now they're finding out all the other places that were doing things. And
it wasn't. It wasn't just ASU. Everybody had to know that.
In coaching circles, they'll all tell you the kids are so so viral that I just got back from this trip, got back from that trip. Look at my shoes. Look at my new.
They're going to talk about that.
Yeah. But I don't want to blame him for it. I will, the lack of institutional control, as it were. I think there's some other people involved that have that responsibility.
And to be fair, the NCAA kind of fumbled the ball, so to speak, when it came to COVID. Because they weren't sure if they were going to have a season. Yeah, they shut down recruiting as far as the specificity of what you could do and not do with recruiting when it when during COVID was never really
it wasn't ironclad.
There was like understood do's and don'ts, but there was never anything like hard in writing. Hey, you can't do that. You can do this. You can't do that. There was never really anything.
I'll give you a good
established as far as contact with kids, and if they come to the campus on their own, you're not paying for the visit. They're coming there on their own.
Can't stop that.
Yeah. Was there really something wrong with that?
There's never ever been that restriction on a team.
Yeah, exactly. And there wasn't.
The restriction was no recruiting, no interaction, or no.
What qualifies as recruiting, though?
There you go.
I think that's the debatable part.
Yeah,
but hopefully ASU has self-sanctioned enough to kind of put this in the rearview mirror, especially by the time this season is over, so that they don't have this cloud hanging over them.
Once they get their
when they do out searching for a new coach.
Once they get their LOA, I think it's going to go really quickly.
Yeah. And what I'm going to remember from Herm Edwards' time here is just the fact that he made an effort to recruit a better caliber of athlete.
Yeah.
And that was we were kind of settling for smaller, more athletic. You can make the argument faster guys, but he was looking for guys who belonged in the pros, guys who could raise the program's profile by getting to the pros and want to attract, and then in turn attract better athletes here. So, trying to raise the program's profile through the players, I think, is something that, no coach had ever really done on a consistent basis.
No, they wrote a spec for every player that they wanted. Yeah.
And again, I don't think any coach has really done that here. No. And I say kudos to him for that. And I think his, as a head coach, a lot of times you won't see head coaches work with individual players during practice.
Yeah.
They might speak to a group, they may, focus on the quarterback. They may, do things like that. But he spent time with a lot of different players.
Yeah.
One-on-one, trying to coach them up individually. Lots of coaches will just leave that to their assistants and whatnot. But, Herm was is still a DB at heart. And he really took a lot of the, several of the DBs under his wing. Could see him always trying to coach up Chase Lucas. helped Chase Lucas get to the NFL. He was doing the same thing with Roe Terrence, and I think Roe had raised his game as a result. So, the fact that he legitimately cared about these kids, he put the kids first. It wasn't
he did care
about him. He legitimately loved to coach, and you could see that in what he did on the practice field. And that, to me, that was what I will take, that he legitimately, genuinely cared about the kids and put them first, and didn't worry about himself, about his profile. He put the team first. And not all coaches will do that on a consistent basis.
No, he was not known as a yeller and screamer. He preferred to get in nice and close like this.
Yeah.
He did.
And, maybe a hushed, kind of maybe harsh word from him carried a lot more weight than just getting in a kid's face and yelling and screaming at him.
Correct. Yeah.
So certainly that and that's everybody's style is different, but I think that is certainly something we can take away from Herm's time here.
I agree.
Now, where does the program go from here? Again, we talked about the NCAA investigation having to be wrapped up, I think, before any respectable candidate can be considered. But is the season lost, do you think, at this point, John?
I think we have to have you and I talked, remember, I think in our first show, we had a number of wins.
Oh yeah, we give our season prediction every year.
Yeah, and I feel like Karnak the Magnificent, over here with Johnny. I'm dating myself, Johnny Carson, number 9.
But you don't think 8-4 is still viable, huh?
No, I do not. In fact, if they get through the next 3 games with 1 win, I want to call that a moral
I would
victory.
take that at this point. Definitely.
Yeah, and it's only because I think it's in the last 6 games that we really have an opportunity to get on a roll based on the competition we have. But
get some confidence. Yeah, get some wins against some very beatable teams.
That's correct.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But what I don't think is lost. I think there's 3/4 of the team in the country would give their right arm for a 8-win season. Just like where Herm was last year, but yet
I just don't see that as viable at this point.
No, I agree.
I mean, you want to try and win one of the next 3, and then and then expect to go undefeated the rest of the season. I don't know if that's going to happen. Honestly, yeah. I mean, I'm certainly rooting for it to happen. I'm certainly hope that it happens, but
yeah,
I don't know, and we'll see how what the effect of Shaun Aguano being at the top spot has on this team come Saturday. Do you think that this is going to? I think this affects Ray Anderson's credibility certainly, and people are already for his job as well. Does he make it to 2023?
This is what's on him right now.
Oh yeah, big time.
And what I mean by that is I truly believe that the hire is very critical to his tenure and his career. But again, Ray's not going anywhere. He's not climbing to the next university after this. This is his last gig. He wants to get it right for his legacy, I'm sure. As the motivation.
I think for that reason, and based on what he learned from this experience, he's not going to bring in a guy who's one of his buddies, a former client. I just think that he's going to try and get the right guy for the program.
Bingo.
Opposed to the right guy for him.
His before we actually went and hired Herm, Ray to the boosters would say, "You're going to love the guy I have for you." Okay. That's not what we really wanted to hear. We wanted to hear we have a winner. We got the right guy, not the guy you're going to love. I don't care about loving the coach, liking the coach. I want performance.
But here's the thing. I'll love the coach if he goes out there and wins.
That's right. And I want half the people who criticize the hire to shut up now, because 1, he's gone, and 2, Ray has proved that he was my buddy. That went right out the window. That's gone now. He proved that being a buddy didn't mean you get to keep your job.
Well, yeah, I don't think that after this loss, I don't think that he could justify doing that.
Yeah.
But friend or not, and
he had his own job to consider too.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And that's,
so that's what,
I think he made that clear, coming into this season, as far as what Herm's future looked like.
yeah.
So, we'll certainly keep an eye on that. What Ray's future looks like. Yeah, and they may get Michael Crow and company may give him one more hire. Depending on who it is, we'll certainly have an eye on that.
I talked to, okay, there was, when Ray was hired, or Herm was hired, there was a panel of three people, three civilians, shall we say, not affiliated with the school. I mean, they were friendly to the program, obviously, but they had and for those who said that Ray didn't interview people, that's nonsense. There was all kinds of people interviewed or put before this panel, this committee. I asked these people, I know at least two of who they were, and I've asked them, are you being asked to come back again? They said, no, we have not been asked. So the process is going to be different, and it's not going to be the same guys. The question becomes, how involved is Ray? How much is this going to be left over to a search firm, to Crow? Just what exactly? That to me, the devil's in the details, folks.
Yeah.
In a lot of this, and
Yeah.
well,
And
he has to sign up as
I
he's
think a search
responsible.
firm might be the way to go, because they tend to find, the candidate that's kind of outside the box, but may end up being the best fit for
Yeah.
the program. So
And
they
remember,
take everything into account when they make their recommendations.
oh, these guys have huge databases, and they can do all the multivariate analysis they want to figure out. And we have a very small needle to thread here in terms of budget and culture that
Yeah.
defined here, and experience.
Yeah.
I still don't think you run that risk of turn this over to a coordinator. I just don't like to think
If it's the right coordinator, maybe. I don't want to get into a coaching
Yeah.
search when we still have 3/4 of the season to play, and we still and
Oh, that's a stupid
there's so
game.
we're talking about things that are kind of out in the future. I mean, it's fun to speculate, but
And I would be the very first person to jump up and down and go give him huge hugs if Aguano, is the guy. But he's
yeah,
going to have he's really going to have he's got a high bar, and he's got to do this other part, this value added thing that he's putting on top of himself, which is flip a few recruits and keep some kids home.
And he made a priority of that during his press conference, certainly, and that's kind of been something that a lot of fans have been clamoring for, is
Right.
the team to focus more on local recruiting. I'm with him. I mean, I'm a Valley resident. I'm sick of losing all these kids to out of state schools, and I want to see them stay home. But hopefully, if Aguano has a good rest of the season, and he is put in as the head coach, I still say that that's a slim possibility. But if the team responds well to him and they like him, and they're willing to play 100% for him, maybe you do roll the dice with him. Interim coaches getting promoted to the head coaching job rarely work out. More often than not, I had somebody mention.
I don't know.
Somebody mentioned Dabo Sweeney to me this week, but that's not the same situation
No.
as this. And I go back to guys like Bill Stewart at West Virginia. Right now Notre Dame's dealing with that right now with their interim from last year, and I more often than not, it's the exception, not the rule.
Well, I'm thinking just last year, Jake Dickert at Wazoo. And the fact that he stepped up, this is what the kids wanted. The kids played for him. They came in here and beat us, and they had a great second half of their year. And
but
Jake's the
you got
most
to look at
recent
what the coaches do long term. I mean,
yeah. Oh, I agree.
and that's it's not just a 1 year thing.
No, but he just went out and beat Wisconsin, for goodness sakes. That's a tough.
Yeah,
that's a tough.
I know,
out.
but I think you got to judge a coach over his whole tenure, not just in the
No
short
question.
term.
No
So
question. But
they may do some good things early on, but can they maintain that over the course of 4 or 5 years down the road? I think that's more often than not, interim coaches don't have that long term success. So,
by the way,
we'll see. I mean, the fact that he's kind of jumping up from being running back, he was coaching high school about 4 years ago now, and now he's jumping up from running backs coach to the head coaching job as an interim. True, is on an interim basis, but we'll see how he handles that transition. And again, he's saying all the right things, but you got to see the performance on the field.
Yeah, going back to Jake Dickert for a second. You know who he plays this week? Oregon.
Yeah, that's right. I do remember.
So
big test right there.
There's a big one.
We'll see what happens with that. And a lot of people are throwing around different candidates for the job, but let's see how Aguano does. I'm certainly rooting for him. I'd like to see a guy who kind of made his bones locally do good. I used to produce Kevin McCabe's Saturday high school sports show, and we had Shaun Aguano on all the time. And seemed like he seemed like a well put together guy. Certainly cares about the kids. Wants nothing but success for his players. We'll see what he does. Rising up to this higher level, and how his players respond to him. But what are your expectations? Do you feel like for the rest of the season?
Knowing Shaun and the fact that he is a bit of a gambler, I think you're going to see him open up the offense more. I think you're going to see more strikes.
Not the worst idea.
No, I think you
still got to establish the run, but if you can do that, you got to make use of play action. Though.
Yep.
Hopefully that he'll make use of that. And opening up the playbook is not the worst idea, especially when you have as many, as much talent in the skill positions as they do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's certainly something that can benefit you. So.
No, I want to see Brian Billick get in here and put his imprint on this. But I know Coach has already said. We sat with him last night at the radio show, and he said, "I'm gonna open this up. I'm a gambler. I want to see more offense. I want to see the big strikes." And if you ever watch the Chandler teams, they put burners out there, man.
Yeah, we got a few. We got Freeman, Hall, Badger. They all run with the best of them. So
yep.
See how things go. Now moving on to Utah, the blackout game this weekend. We'll see how things go. Utah's coming in. They're legit. They are once again. It seems like they're perennially, if not winning the Pac-12, then in contention for it. And they're coming in number 13 team in the nation. Of course, they won the Pac-12 last year, and they just embarrassed Oregon in the championship game. And then turned around and took Ohio State to their breaking point in the Rose Bowl. Only lost by 3, 48-45. And you talk about why this team is so successful, and it's their head coach and the fact that he's been there as long as he has. His tenure, his 18th season in Salt Lake City. He's like I think the second longest tenured coach behind like Kirk Ferentz among the Power Five.
Yeah.
So, I know we talked, OSU, Mike Gundy was the third.
Correct.
And, Kyle Whittingham, I believe he's the second most tenured, has the second longest tenure of any coach in the Power Five. And, his record is outstanding, 145-71. They had a very big test in their opener against Florida and Gainesville and came within a few yards of beating the Gators in the swamp. Which is definitely no easy task, and they Cameron Rising threw an interception at the goal line right at the end of the game. They looked really good in that game, and they've looked really good the last 2 weeks. Their blowout wins over Southern Utah and San Diego State, where they won by a combined 108. John, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah.
108-14. That's right. And the biggest asset is they control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. They have big, physical.
Always
good athletic linemen on both sides of the ball. And I mean, they're giving up only 236 yards of total offense a game, and they rush for over 200 yards a game. So they love to control the line of scrimmage. They love to run the ball. They love to shut down the run, make the opposing offense one-dimensional, pin their ears back for the quarterback. That's been their MO since since Whittingham's tenure there.
My question to you is, are they a better team this year than last year when we played them?
I'm not defensively. And because they put a couple guys in the NFL and Devin Lloyd and the other linebacker Sewell. They were outstanding players. Yes. And I don't think they're better defensively, but they do have some talent. Their talent is more in the secondary this year. But we'll talk about the defense in a minute. But got to talk about their offense. They run a pro style with multiple tight ends. I mean, I think like 4 or 5 different tight ends have receptions on this team so far. And, Cameron Rising, since he came over from Texas, has been instrumental for this team. I mean, that was kind of the one thing that was kind of holding them back for a while from being a very good team to a great team. And I think Cameron Rising's really put them over the top. He's had great numbers this year. 600, almost 700 yards passing, 8 touchdowns against that one interception he had against Florida. And he's a dual threat. He can get out and run a little bit. He's got 13 carries for 90 yards. He hasn't had to do much running this year, but I think you might see him do a little bit more of that in this game. And another focal point of their offense is running back Tavian Thomas. He's kind of become the number one back, the bell cow for this team. 50 carries, 222 yards, and 4 touchdowns on the ground for him. And then, I mentioned the tight ends, and the 2 tight ends on this team are their leading receivers. I'm sorry, just a couple. They got the third down back, Micah Bernard.
Right.
He's kind of a change of pace, a little bit more of like that water bug, scatter back. Is a good receiver out of the backfield. Then you'll also see Jalen Glover and Chris Curry worked into the mix as well. But yeah, and then you talk about in the passing game, those tight ends, they burned ASU last year and were instrumental in getting Utah back into the game when ASU was up 21-7 at halftime. And ultimately, Utah came out and pulled out the win in Salt Lake City. And Dalton Queethy, 17 receptions, 191 yards, 3 touchdowns. Dalton Kincaid, 12 receptions, 174 yards, and 2 touchdowns. They're big-time threats. I mean, you can line them up just about anywhere, and Rising will get them the ball. This is kind of become a focal point of their offense. These 2 guys, like I said, they're leading receivers on the year.
Yep. Those guys got behind our defense last year in the seam and really killed us. In that second half,
more Connor Soley dropping into coverage in this game. I mean, that's an added wrinkle that I kind of like to see him use his speed a little bit,
his range
to cover some of these tight ends, because they had a problem, covering Tanner Oaks, the tight end from Eastern Michigan last week. He had a couple big catches, and that's something else I think that they I'm going to talk about that in my keys to the game. But just finishing up on the Utes offense, wide receiver Devon Belly has also been a threat this year. 8 receptions, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns. And their wide receivers, Jalen Dixon, the local product Solomon Enos, and Money Parks, also threats. And Jalen Dixon, he's a great athlete. He's kind of taken over that kind of Swiss Army knife role that Britton Covey held for a lot of years. And
he finally graduated. Yay!
I know, right? He's playing for the Eagles now, and Jalen Dixon, they'll use him on some run plays. They'll use him on jet motion. They'll line him up a lot of different ways and find different ways to get him the ball. So it's definitely something you definitely have to game plan for. And then on defense, kind of a different look for the Utes than years past. And of course, they graduated. We mentioned Devin Lloyd and Nephi Sewell, I think, was the other linebacker.
Right.
But the strength of this team has kind of become the secondary. And one guy who looks like he's going to be a fairly high draft pick is Clark Phillips III. He hasn't really had to do a whole lot so far this year. He's pretty much just played the shutdown role. They haven't really thrown his way a whole lot. He's only got 4 tackles on the season, and no interceptions, no pass deflections. But he does his job very, very well out on the perimeter, shutting down the opposing team's best receiver. So it's going to be tough to get whoever he's on the ball. And then safety Cole Bishop, 24 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss on a pass deflection this year. He's their leading tackler, and they'll bring him in the box. They'll do a lot of different things with him. And then, talk about the Utes, you got to talk about their front 7. And Karen Reed, another guy who's filled up the stat sheet so far this year: 13 tackles, 1.5 sacks, an interception, 2 pass deflections. And one guy that they're very excited about, who's kind of taken over Devin Lloyd's spot in the middle, excuse me, I'm probably going to butcher this, but Mohamed Diabate, Florida transfer, he's got 13 tackles so far this year. He's just a guy who plays downhill and does very well in the gaps in run defense. This guy you definitely got to watch out for.
They reloaded.
Yeah, kind of the ball hawk on this team has been R.J. Hubert, the other safety. He's got 11 tackles on the year, but he's also returned an interception and a fumble recovery for touchdowns on the season. So he's another guy, you put the ball on the ground or put the ball in the air, you got to watch out and know where he is at all times. And then, of course, this Utah front is a little younger, but still they've still managed to pile up the sacks pretty well. The big guys, Jonah Ellis, who's actually the defensive line coach's son, former Detroit Lion Luther Ellis. That's his son. Gabe Reed and Junior Tafuna all combined for 6.5 sacks so far this season. So that's the Utes. And now, of course, our keys to the game presented by the Valley Athletic Booster Club. Support local athletics by going to valleyathleticboosterclub.com. And for me, I think you got to minimize the penalties. That's been an issue, for pretty much since last year. They've been drive killers, and just got to maintain discipline and not commit so many stupid penalties. You talk about the offensive line not really knowing where Emory Jones is. Maybe change up the play calling a little bit to kind of help them out, so they're not committing penalties behind the play so much. Yeah. I think that would definitely help everybody out. And then on defense, you gotta contain Thomas and Rising on the ground. I know that's asking a lot, especially after last week when they gave up so many yards on the ground, but they just have to, I talked about it before, maintain that gap discipline and not try to do too much, try to go where they're not. And cover the tight ends, because that's going to be a big part of the passing game. Cameron Rising is going to be looking for those two tight ends, and they're going to be the primaries on a lot of passing plays. So you got to know where they are and pick them up and make somebody else beat you.
Yeah, I'm not sure our DNs are, at least from practice, I don't see them dropping in the coverage. I see more like Soley dropping, Merlin dropping.
The linebackers and safeties should be covering the tight ends.
Yeah.
Anyway, you can't be relying on defensive ends to do that, especially not these tight ends, because they run routes very well. They're very smart. They read defenses very well as far as the holes in the zone and whatnot. So that's going to be very important for them to try to minimize this offense. Put up a lot of points thus far this year.
So when you say contain Rising, you mean?
He hasn't
don't let him get outside.
Yeah, he hasn't run very much this year. They used some read option with him and Thomas, but he killed us on the ground last year, and I'm anticipating him doing more of the same this year. We got to find a way to minimize his damage on the ground, because this Utah team is a run first team. They're looking to continually move the chains and pick up yards on the ground. If you can manage to shut down that run game somehow, I know it's going to be a tall task, but that's I think that's got to be a focal point after last week's performance. You've got to find a way to minimize the damage on the ground. I think that's a huge key.
To amplify on the depth of the D line, I keep going back to Lott again. I would not try to rush and get him back in there necessarily for this game.
If he's not healthy,
you
got to do next man up and let somebody else do it.
Correct.
You don't want him getting worse. Certainly.
No, you want to put him at risk. There's too many big things. There's a couple big games coming after this, and we're going to need him down the stretch.
Right.
So, we really didn't talk about that earlier, but I didn't realize how important a part of that D line he was until he went down.
Right.
And so
he's definitely been one of my guys, and I know how valuable he is and how valuable he can be.
The good news is that the good news is that Rowe's back in. Rowe Torrance is looks like he's
that's going to be big for the secondary. I know
it really is.
They definitely missed him quite a bit the last few weeks. So,
but I wouldn't rush it. And don't press him if he's not
ready. Yeah, don't rush him. Certainly.
Yeah. my keys, and this I've listened to Aguano talk about this, and I cannot disagree. You got to pick, and it's the same thing you're talking about, the penalties, the discipline, and he calls it attention to detail, and the fact that
and you watch the same games I do. We're usually on the same page with a lot of this stuff. We usually watch most of the game together, so
yeah, it's
you're seeing the same things I'm seeing. I know.
Yeah, it's technique. It's dumb stuff.
Yeah.
The holding, offensive lineman not knowing if the ball's out or not, so they continue to, wait. They start their technique breaks down.
You got to change up your play calling to help them out.
I agree. Get the ball out quick, a little quicker, a little time. By the way, something we did not talk about in the against the Eagles. At one point, the not time of possession, but the number of plays it was 40 to 20, 40 something to 20 something. They had twice as many plays. We have to learn what.
Well, that's just a reflection of their ability to convert on third down.
Well, I'm talking about us
in manageable third down.
I think we're going to start questioning whether or not we're going to go in the huddle every play or not. That's a big time eater, right?
It wouldn't be the worst idea to kind of mix it up and maybe go tempo.
Yeah.
1 or 2 drives just to kind of keep the defense on their toes and show that you can do it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the worst idea. I don't know if you want to do it in this game necessarily. I think you might think about playing some ball control a little bit more to kind of give your defense more of a rest. But in the future, mix it up a little.
Yeah, totally. See what they're giving you, right?
Yeah.
See what they're giving you. If they're going to be in base, if they're going to be in 4-3 versus 4-2-5, then maybe you change it. My other big key, I think, is just finishing plays. What I mean by that is, there's a whole series of things, but scoring in the red zone, finishing every drive with a kick, converting. Our third down conversion has got to get better. It's just been dreadful.
A kick, not a punt.
That's correct. And then you want to get. We got to start getting 3 and outs and getting these guys off the field.
Well, yeah, and that's I mean, again, that's been an issue with the defense. And we'll talk. I think we're going to continue to talk about this because the Ladarius Henderson brought it up, and it rings true. If you play well on first and second down, you give yourself a chance to be successful on third down.
Right.
And that's true on both sides of the ball, and hopefully they take that to heart and are able to, just make some plays, fill those gaps. Don't, just play your role, play your position. Don't, just play the way you're capable and the way you're coached.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's asking too much at this point.
Nope.
So those are our keys to the game presented by the Valley Athletic Booster Club. Check out valleyathleticboosterclub.com. And now
it's a fun club, guys. It's ASU's only.
We do a great tailgate. Even if the game sucks, the tailgate's awesome.
We give good tailgate.
Yes. So as we always do here on the show, our score predictions for this week. I still think ASU, even with this kind of new attitude, this Ohana family first attitude, still think ASU is going to fall this week. I think it'll be a little more competitive than a lot of people are anticipating. I'm going to say Utah 34-24.
Yeah, I'm looking for, you asked me, what am I expecting? I just want to see these guys play hard every play. If they can accomplish that.
Again, not asking too much.
That's not. And just play hard every down. And things are going to come your way. You're going to win. You're going to win the games you're supposed to win, and then a few more. So this is not the game yet where they're ready to just from an athlete to athlete matchup standpoint where that's all going to come together for them. But I do think they'll be in the game for much of the game. 31-21 Utah, and I'm not the guy who usually picks for the opposing team.
Oh yeah, you're an even more optimist than me. You're usually the one picking picking ASU.
There's no body of work yet for coach, and I want to see. I'm really pulling for him to get this.
Yeah, and we all are, and because we do care about this team legitimately. We do love this team. We want them to do well. You spend time with these players and see what they're about and how they're out there playing for each other.
Yeah,
you want to see them do well because they're good kids. They really are, and even if the team's not doing well, you still want to go out there and support them, support the kids.
Always support the kids.
It's I know you might be frustrated with the program, with the AD, with the president, and all that, but don't go to the game for them. Go to the game for the kids because
That's right.
I mean, I saw how frustrated some of the guys were on Twitter about everybody leaving early. I know I left after Conyers' fumble there late in the fourth quarter. I was like the rest of you. I was extremely frustrated, and rightfully so. But still, show up to the games. Continue to come to the games. Don't just write this team off, write this season off, just because of what's happened so far. I still think we're going to see some good things before this season's over.
No doubt.
They may not always translate into wins, but there'll be some things that I think that the team can build on going forward.
Yeah, there's some, and you're right to say that because there's some outstanding athletes who are capable of some great performances.
There's still potential here. There's still there's a ton of talent on this team.
Right.
We just haven't seen very much of it yet. I don't think, and it is frustrating. I'm frustrated. I was supposed to beaten up an Eastern Michigan fan who was yelling "forks down" at halftime of this game. I almost got kicked out. I was not happy, and I almost let my emotions get the best of me, and I'm ashamed of it, but it happened. And it's just one of those things. I'm frustrated, just like the rest of you, but still go out and support the team. You can't just abandon them in the midst of a bad season because of some decisions that were made or stuff that you don't agree with. That's not the players' fault. Go out there, support the kids because they feed off of that, and they've made that obvious. And hopefully that that enthusiasm will translate into some good things here.
Wear your black too, everybody.
Yes, blackout. Of course. Blackout. Yes, I'm already in game mode, as you can see.
You are. That's great.
So that'll do it for this week on RWD. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know we went a little long this week, but we had so much to talk about, and we appreciate you sticking with us. Yes, we'll be a blackout game, 7:30 local time on ESPN. Maybe let's see if ASU can't cover that spread.
I think we both said
upset some bettors in Vegas.
We're both saying they will right here. Right?
Yes, sir.
We're both saying they're going to cover.
So we'll see you. Hopefully we'll see you out there. Big John Caldwell. I'm the RyKno Ryan Knowles. We'll say goodnight. Go Devils. Forks up. Black out the Utes.
There you go, baby. And we are out.